And we just start talking before the program starts, and they ask, oh, who are you folks? Where do you work? And so we said, okay, mind you, this is way in the beginning where public sentiment of HART was so negative. So you almost don't want to say where you work. But I said openly, I'm Lori Kahikina, I'm CEO and Executive Director of HART. It's my Deputy Director, Rick Keene. And the reaction was, are you kidding me? Oh my God, we have to pray for you right now. And I thought,
we're up again, we're dancing in the love we know.
Aloha and welcome to the Young Catholic Leaders podcast series. And in this podcast, we are exploring the intersection of faith and professional life. Here we aim to empower young Catholic professionals by providing guidance, insights, and inspiration from experienced mentors across a variety of different fields. Today, we're blessed to have Lori Kahikina joining us. Lori is the CEO and Executive Director of Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation. And she's also been an engineer across different departments from the City and County of Honolulu. So again, thank you, Lori, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That we get to hear your wisdom.
Thank you.
But let's start with this. Let's talk about your faith journey. How was that growing up, maybe some family life, and how has that led you to today?
Sure. Actually, growing up, I was very anti-religion. My mother is Catholic, and she was brought up at St. Anthony's in Kailua. My father was brought up Mormon because they were brought up in Hawaiian Homestead in Waimanalo, and it was a very big family. They didn't have a car to fit everyone into one vehicle, so the nearest church was Mormon. And so when they got married, my dad tried to be, supportive husband and do the Catholic faith. And the one story I remember them sharing with me, two young girls, they come in late to Mass at St. Anthony's, and the priest stopped the entire Mass to embarrass them, to say, look, here's this family coming in nonchalant late, and my dad has a very bad temper. And my mother was squeezing his hand to please. She was sure he was going to run up there and just, make a scene, but they ended up leaving, and my dad never went back to church again. So that's the mindset that I was brought up in, that, religion, you don't need it. We were survive without it. And it was actually my husband at the time. He brought me up into the faith. His family is very devout Catholics. His mother, to me, she's an angel on earth. She's so patient. She's just a loving, wonderful person. And I learned from her. And I started to go to church to be with the family. We weren't married yet. And that's how I became, a Catholic. And I was not a converted Catholic. And we got married at Kamehameha schools because I wasn't a Catholic. But when my sons were born, my three sons, I have to admit, it was a financial decision. In order to get a private education at a cost that we could afford, it was a Catholic school, which was St. John Vianney in Kailua. And if we were parishioners, you would get a tuition discount. So I have to admit, sorry, it was that. And then I actually, for my sons to become Catholic, I wanted to also become a Catholic. So I went through the RCIA program, and then we redid our vows in the Catholic Church.
Nice.
And ever since then, just been a devout Catholic ever since.
So it was your family that ultimately you went into the church together.
My in-laws, yes. Yeah. Yes,
That's
and then
awesome.
eventually my sons. So my sons, as I was mentioning to Tyler here, my three boys went to St. John Vianney. Number 1 and number 3 were altar servers, and then eventually went to St. Francis, one of them, and the other 2 went to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
No,
growing up as a kid.
it's a journey,
But that
right?
just goes to show that a priest, just be careful who you scold during Mass, right? But two, I always love hearing of when families come back into the faith together. So
absolutely.
That's such an awesome story.
Absolutely.
So you just never looked back from them?
I never looked back and it's just been getting stronger over the years. Right now, what I currently do is I volunteer at the church on Kaneohe Marine Corps Station. I went to St. Anne's for a few years, changed over to the Marine Corps base for about 7 years, and then we lost our priest because the priests are military.
Yeah.
So, well, what am I going to do? So I came back to St. Anne's for about 2 months and got involved with Noel. He's the choir director, and so now I cantor at St. Anne's, but I'm still devoted also to the Marine Corps base. So I play music, piano, and sing at that church as well.
What made you want to get more involved in the parish?
At the one on the base, there was one pianist, and she was doing everything by herself. She was singing and playing the piano, and like, I'm not a good singer. I feel like I can't carry a tune. I'm like, but I just had this desire I have to help. And so I went up to her and I said, this was actually after a couple years, got the guts. I'm like, okay, I can't sing, but I'm willing to help. She's like, come on board. And it was me and her for the longest time. Then they canceled the music in the evening mass. So I moved to the morning mass, and there's other singers. So there's about 4 or 5 of us. And then when we got this new priest, I asked, do you want music in the evening mass? He goes, yes, please. It's like, okay. So I started playing piano, got my girlfriend who plays guitar. She's never played in front of the public, and she's all nervous. I'm like, don't worry, you'll be fine. So she's playing guitar now, and so I feel good because I brought her into the faith. So
it was that heart of wanting to help and wanting to give support, which I'm sure is required out of you in your leadership position.
Absolutely,
right?
Yes.
How else has your faith maybe shaped the way that you approach work?
So I would like to give a little history of how I became the HART CEO. So before I was at the Department of Environmental Services running the sewers and the trash, and I'm a very tough leader. You go back to those guys, and as a leader, you become a product of your environment. So ENV has 1,100 employees. Majority are men and majority are blue collar. You cannot show weakness. So I was very tough, and if I had to go back and do it again, I don't know if I would be any different. But fast forward, my term was ending, and I was in conflict with HART because our sewer lines, they wanted me to get out of the way for their project. And I said, I'm not getting out of your way, you get out of my way, right? Kind of a bad attitude. So then I was asked, would you consider going to HART? I'm like, why would I go to HART? They are a bane of my existence, right? But it was that pull again of, can I make a difference? Can I help the community? And that really drove me to the point where, yes, now I really want to do it. And so I was in conversations with the board chair at the time, and he would talk to me, and the concern was I didn't have transit experience. So I said, but, I don't think I need to have transit experience. Those experts are there within HART. You need leadership. You need people who have relationships already with major stakeholders and who has proven that they know how to relocate utilities in an area. And we're really just building a bridge is what we're doing. And which is, I have experience with contracts and relocating utilities. But it was difficult to convince people that I was the right person for the job because of the lack of transit experience. And the board chair, I was not the number one pick. I went through ups and downs with him. Like he picked one person. I said, great, I will work for that person. That person declined. And it went through cycles. And then finally, as people decline or didn't want to do it, I'm number 7. And he apologized to me. He's like, you've been here all the time waiting patiently. I'm so sorry. I said, hey, there's no apologies necessary. I get it. I'm not the ideal candidate. So let's just roll up our sleeves and let's do it. Not thinking at the time how important number 7 is. When you read the Bible, everywhere in the Bible, this number 7 is so important. And I remember I went to go speak to the pastors out on the west side. I went to give a presentation to them, and I said this story, and they said, maybe you're a number 7 for that board, but you're God's number 1 choice. And I'm like, oh, I just love that when they said that to me, because I believe that.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Or we can say that they really just wanted to get those sewer lines out of the way. So they were
Correct.
But I mean, when you think about it, right, and we'll get to that in a little bit later, it's all of what you've gone through kind of even made us look and be like, I remember when we were trying to get you on the podcast, it was one of our committee members said, oh, we heard Lori at one of the brunches and she had talked about her faith. Yes. And we asked ourselves, wait, did she open about that? Does she want to come and talk? And that's why you're here today, right? So kind of God just leading you to different places then, even when you don't expect anything happening out of it.
It's incredible what he has done in my life. And even that prayer group, that pastor group on the West Side, how I met them is even phenomenal. Every year I go to the prayer breakfast that gets put on at the Hilton Hawaiian Village. And usually someone is hosting the government, the cabinet, the mayor's cabinet. We sit on different tables. So the table that I was on, and actually it was the night before, my deputy is not religious, Rick Keene. And we were in a very contentious time at the project. We were writing a recovery plan. When the project goes askew, FTA requires that, okay, you need to show us, what's the scope of the project? How are you going to fund it? Your schedule. And he was in the midst of writing this, and he was up against a really tight deadline. And I told him, I know we have this deadline, but it's so important for me. Every year I go to this prayer breakfast. It's 7:00 in the morning. It's not going to take a lot of time out of our schedule, but I'm not going to force you. You come if you want to. You don't want to come, don't want to come. He's like, yeah, no, I'm too busy. I said, okay, great. The night before, he texts me. He's like, I'm going to go with you. I said, okay, great. And then we sit on this table. We don't know anybody on the table. And we just start talking before the program starts. And they ask, oh, who are you folks? Where do you work? And so we said, okay, mind you, this is way in the beginning where public sentiment of HART was so negative. So you almost don't want to say where you are. But I said openly, I'm Lori Kahikina, I'm CEO and Executive Director of HART. It's my Deputy Director, Rick Keene. And the reaction was, are you kidding me? Oh my God, we have to pray for you right now. And I thought, I'm used to that, but I was wondering, my Rick going to be uncomfortable? But he stood there and we all held hands. And of all the tables that we could sit on, there's probably 1,000 people in that room. How did we get on this table? And from this group, every few months they come in and they ask me to present to their group. They pray for me constantly. I was in today, hopefully they'll have it in the media. But a few months ago when I was going through the drama with my board, I said it in an interview, my prayer warriors, this is why I'm able to survive. And I know you're going to ask me later, but how do you deal with conflict and pressure and stress? And the word that has been in my mind, it's grace. And there's my personality. If you look at how I've led over the years, I'm a titter. I have a bad temper and I'm strong. And when somebody attacks me, I'm going to attack back. But I could not in this case. And there was no way I could conduct myself like that without the grace of God. I pray. Yeah. I normally wear my my cross earrings, but I lost the backing today, so it's in my truck. But I pray and I please God, give me the patience, the grace, the professionalism to say the right words. I'm always running to Him constantly.
That's awesome.
Yes.
No, for sure. And it's sound advice no matter what job
no matter
working,
what,
right?
yes.
So in particular though, right? A lot of times when we think faith and we think government, oil and water, right? How do you navigate that?
Yes, it's a very delicate walk. You have to, actually by law, you have to separate government and religion. And I remember in my old role at Environmental Services, I had a chief, very strong faith. And he would like to start a lot of his meetings with prayer. And it broke my heart to tell him, you have to stop because I'm getting complaints and we're not allowed to force religion on our staff. So the way I balance it is I openly tell my staff, because they ask me too when we're having meetings and they see I'm getting beat up, whether it's by the media, the public, the board. How do you handle that? And I openly tell them in meetings, it's my faith.
Yeah.
It's my faith. There's no other explanation. I even tell the story, how I became the CEO, how I met this group, my entire career. It's God leading me. So I'm not pushing religion on them. I'm just answering their question. And same thing. In fact, one of my directors today, he says, it was such a wonderful day today. So it is in the media that the board finally approved my contract so I can stay at HART for the next, hopefully, 7 years. And one of my directors, we came into my office to debrief, and he said, Lori, earlier this year, you were willing to walk. I said, I was. And he says, but you also told me, have faith. Same thing when our bid was coming in for our contract. It was really high. And, before we started negotiating, he wanted me to accept this high number. I said, I will not. I don't think it's the right number. We need to bring them down. And he goes, but they're going to walk. I said, have faith. So I tried to impart on my team, my belief is my belief. And this is what drives me. This is how I make my decisions. And I have faith. So I'm able to be calm. When we had the wheels did not fit the tracks. There's cracks in the concrete hammerheads. Like, I don't panic. It's like, okay, this is a bummer. It's irritating that this wasn't addressed before I got here, but now have faith. We're going to solve the problem. Everyone come together. We talk about it. We discuss what the solution is going to be, and then we implement. There's no reason to panic.
Yeah.
And a lot of it. So I try to balance. I'm not imposing my religion on you, but just know I have strong faith, and that's what drives me.
So almost really, it's living the example, right?
That's a really good.
And
yes.
if anything, that's a way more effective way to show people what our faith does.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, let's go into leadership now, right? So obviously, and you were kind of hinting at it earlier, when you stepped into the role with the limited experience you have in transit, you said, I may not have that, but I'm a good leader.
Yes.
What defines a good leader to you?
So, and this part I'm still working on. Compassionate, you still need to be intelligent. You need to be patient, which I'm still working on that too. You need to hold people accountable, and you need to be able to don't ask something of your team that you yourself are not willing to do. So like when I was with the blue collar guys at E&V, the sewers and the trash, I was not afraid. I dove the sewers. I went on the trash runs to understand what challenges they're facing. So same thing with the engineering world. I get into the minutia. I may be accused of being micromanaging, but it's not my intent. My intent is to understand. So whenever I'm questioned anywhere, even on the street, I know exactly what's going on in the project and how can I help? Because I have the relationships prior to coming to HART with stakeholders. And so when my team gets stuck, I'm there. Whether for example, we had a supply chain issue is still there because of COVID. The sewer laterals are not to the depth that we need them at, so we need to go and lower them for E&V. There's not the supplies here on Oahu. My contractor said it's going to take 3 months. It's going to delay. I said, let me call E&V. E&V, can I use your inventory and we will order and backfill? And they said, come pick it up today. So it's a lot of relationships and you listen to your team, but you have to be decisive as well, especially construction. Time is money. You cannot waffle. I'm going to make the decision with the information that I have at the time. And if it's wrong, I have to own up to that too. Yeah. So that's another key leadership element. You give all the kudos to your team when things happen well, because I'm not the one making everything happen. It's them. But when there's something bad, you better be right there in the front to take the hit.
Yeah.
Even if something happened, team member did something wrong, publicly, you take the hit, and in the background, what the heck was that? Scold them behind doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that way you always look united, right? And I would assume that that's how you get a lot of respect
Yes.
because
Yes.
you're telling people, this is what I'm going to do for you.
Right.
Where did that come from? Maybe growing up or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, my dad had influence on me. And to your point earlier, he wasn't sitting down with me saying, this is what it takes to be a good leader. I just watched him.
Yeah.
I watched him, his work ethic, his integrity, and then watching other leaders, or you can also learn of what not to do. It drove me crazy when I'm middle management and my upper management, they're not making decisions. I said, engineers were always accused of analysis to paralysis. It's like you're being more detrimental by not making a decision, even if it's the wrong one. I mean, you have to own up to it when it's the wrong one, but you've got to make decisions. And even if it's difficult, like when I first came into HART, day one, I said, everyone submits their resume. I'm going to evaluate everyone, and I am going to streamline by March 31st. And so, yeah, it was pretty public. I cut about, I want to say 43% of our staff, the city staff, and 30% of our consultants because it was the right thing to do. And I remember I just was one by one evaluating people. And when I told my deputy, okay, I'm going to have to release all of these people, he goes, no, I don't think, you're making too drastic of a change. I said, now's the time to do it. Construction is at a lull. Now's the time. When we start ramping up, then we'll bring people back. But, I had people working at HART that they didn't meet the minimum qualifications for the job. Or one person, her entire job was doing a poster contest. We are a construction firm, and that's what we do. We don't need to be doing poster contests, right? So you have to be able to make those tough decisions, and you're not going to be, you're not there for popularity. You're there for doing the right thing.
And that's fascinating, right? Because this is not new information. It's good advice. But this is something that we always hear, especially I'm kind of speaking for, well, at least my generation, but I know the generation after is going through an immense amount of pressure. Yeah. If anything, we're the ones we're the most afraid of commitment than ever before, right?
Fair
so
enough.
when we hear you have to make a decision, we think, oh my God, but what? Do I have to? Right?
Yes.
So, and you have boys, right? And I'm sure you see it in them too.
Yes.
What is your advice to that?
It's difficult, but you have to. You have to. And for the younger generation, I can tell you as an employer, if I see somebody who keeps changing positions, changing jobs, it shows me no loyalty. I'm not going to put the effort to bring you in, train you. It takes about 6 months to 2 years, and then you're going to leave for greener pastures. So I look at your track record. So that's on the work professional side, but just in life, you need to be decisive. And it's easy for me. That's my personality, but I know it can be scary, but you just have to stick to it. And just take baby steps. And once you start getting used to it and you start having wins that, hey, that decision wasn't so bad, you just keep doing it. I guess it's like riding a bike, right? Once you start, it's scary, but you'll get used to it, and hopefully you'll continue doing it throughout your life, throughout your career.
Yeah. So just gotta do it.
Just gotta do it. Rip the bandage off. Just do it.
Make a decision.
Make a
right?
decision.
Speaking of our young Catholic leaders, right? That's what this podcast is all about. What do you think the role is in mentorship, in not just your current field, but in general?
Oh no, it's extremely important. And I never had a mentor, whether it was in my faith, other than my mother-in-law, and she wasn't. Like I said, it wasn't an intentional. Lori, you need to go to church and do this and this and this, because that would have turned me off. Because it would have been, don't tell me what to do, right? I have this attitude. I do what I want to do. It has to be my decision, right? It was by example. I didn't have a mentor in my profession that sat down and kind of gave me guidance of this is where you should go. I did have a supervisor that said I was going into the master's program, and he said, you really need to get your professional engineer's license. that was so pivotal in my career, because in the government, with the city and state, you are capped at a certain level of a civil engineer 5 without that PE license. So every time I can speak to those college students or young engineers, I said, you need to get that license, because you will not go further in your career, especially with the government. But now where I'm at, I want to give back. I want to mentor other people, whether it's in HART itself. And so now I'm mentoring a young person outside of HART, just to give back. Because if I can, and I'm not an expert, but man, if you could learn from my mistakes and take these shortcuts, I think it's helpful. So you have to give back. I mean, I've been so blessed in my entire career, in my life. I definitely want to give back wherever I can.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Right, you would be careful after this podcast. You might get a couple emails saying,
God,
hey.
I welcome it. Every time I speak, even like to women organizations, someone stops me afterwards, and I said, absolutely. And it does lead to other speaking engagements. It's wherever I can help. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. And that's important for me to hear too, right? And because it's a lot of times we get so lost in the lack of decision making or trying to figure stuff out, handling pressure, that we forget that there's a supportive community out there.
Yes.
You can ask
absolutely.
people these questions. We don't have to do this by ourselves.
And when you mentor, not only does it feel good, but you actually learn too from your mentee. It's like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, especially the younger generation. It's like their thinking is so different from mine and from previous generations. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to shift into the last part of our conversation here, and it's dealing with conflict, right? Which in Hawaii, we know that you've dealt with conflict over this last year. But specifically, right? You're in a high pressure, high stake environment, leading massive projects, billion-dollar projects. And there's probably a lot of voices. Not to mention, right, you're in a male-dominated field. So how do you, maybe if you can walk us through, how do you get through all of that without tapping out or giving up?
Sure. Where do I start? So I mentioned earlier, my personality is I am a tita. And so when there's conflict, I actually thrive on that. Yeah. I love conflict. And but I learned, it was like my first quarter here at HART. And I share this story where whenever I speak, I was defending HART's budget at City Council. And one of the council members, I felt she was accusing me of lying. And I had my stack of papers and I slammed it down on the podium and I went toe to toe with her. And like I said, I enjoy conflict. That was fun at the time. but what a mistake that was. I'm sure it made me look bad. It made HART look bad. It was front page news that I made the council member cry. And for the rest of the time that anything for HART came in front of her, she would vote against us. So my lesson, which I want to share, is don't do that. I mean, one of my friends, my girlfriends even had to remind me that the chair, the council committee chair, actually, who knew they had gavels? He had a gavel and he's hammering on the table. Decorum. And that was just, to me, a low point in my career, and it's so public. I had to apologize to her, to the chair, to all the council members, to mayor, managing director, and managing director mentored me in that moment. Lori, you have to be able to, we have to agree to disagree. And man, whenever I watch him speak, I hate following him because he is the epitome of decorum. I was like, man, I want to strive to be like him. And that's where I've tried to, when it comes to conflict, especially out in the public, whether it's at a board meeting or city council, I need to contain my composure, and I'm constantly praying. I mentioned earlier that I normally wear my cross earrings when I know I'm going to have a contentious meeting. And I'm constantly praying, like, please, God, before the meeting, please guide me, and having the patience and the intelligence to say the right things, to act a certain way, and always after, thank you, God, for guiding me. Because even if it was a bad meeting, it could have been worse if it wasn't guiding me.
Yeah.
So, but as far as within HART, or if I feel a stakeholder is taking advantage of us, I will not tolerate it too.
Yeah.
I'm firm and I'm fair, even when I'm negotiating, because contractors file claims, or when we're negotiating this biggest, this $1.66 billion contract, I make it clear to the contractor, don't try to take advantage of me because you're not going to get away with it. But I am fair. If I feel you deserve it, I will pay you. So every decision I make is in the taxpayer's best interest. It's not my money, it's the taxpayer's money.
Yeah.
It's not what I want, it's what the taxpayers want. So, and when you use that as your guiding principle, you can't go wrong. It's like, and I share this with all of my team, my HART Ohana, they know this. I've drilled this in their head. Make the right decision for the taxpayers because we are their servants. This is what we're doing for them.
Yeah. But I can see that. And that's why you get so passionate about it, right? Because you're coming from a place of service.
Exactly.
Which really is Catholic social teaching, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
I want to go back to just managing when you're feeling that tension, right? That you have that. And you said you're in this constant state of prayer. How did you build up to that? I know you mentioned that you were following an example of other people.
Yes.
Does their prayer life at home or going to mass kind of help add to that?
Yes, I think it's mass, just listening to the sermon. I actually take notes. I never did that before. But I take notes. I usually take away 5 or 6 learning points from the priest during his homily. And no, I never had that. Even at home with my my little family, we don't do prayer. So it was just learning from others, learning how the priest prays. When I go to different functions, just listening how people pray. But yeah, I had to learn from others because I wasn't taught I don't know if there's a proper way to do it. I always learned from the priest that it's a conversation with you and God, and him leading you, and you just have to be willing to give to him that guidance. Meaning, I'm a leader, and I don't like to necessarily take guidance from somebody, right? Oh, I think you need to go this way. No, I'm going to go this way because I want to, right? So you have to be willing to give that over to the Lord. And it's funny, like I wish I had an example that I could give. Like, I want to go this way, and he puts something blocking me. That, oh no, I don't want you to go that way. You're going this way. And I may be coming to HART. That was a good example. It's like, I don't want anything to do with HART. They're driving me crazy. You're gonna go to HART. Okay. And then when I get my hopes up, number 5, number 6. I needed you to be number 7 for a reason. That's part of the message. When you talk about me, when you talk about God and how I led you, I need you to be number 7. And I'm teaching you patience. You have to be patient. It's not on your time, it's on my time. So
how do you handle when people have negative opinions about the project?
yes, so that's a really good. I'm glad you asked that. And I knew that walking into the project. So my family, my colleagues, are you out of your mind? Why would you want to do that? Everyone hates HART. I said, because I can make a difference. I know I can. And slowly but surely, I can feel it. We've been turning public sentiment around at least once a week. Someone from the public, I don't even know. In fact, I took my parents to the Big Island yesterday, or on Wednesday, for a day trip. We're at the airport. Some lady comes up to me and she says, you don't know who I am, but just thank you for what you are doing. And I kid you not, the week before I was at Baskin & Robbins with my kids, and somebody stops me. So I feel like we've changed public sentiment, and the way we did that was things like this. Just one-on-one, I would go to every Rotary Club, every neighborhood board, any institution that would have me. I would go. And I didn't care if there was 2 people in that room, because how it works, especially in Hawaii, if I can change the mindset of one person in that room, they're going to tell their friends, their family, hey, Heart's not that bad. And when I first came to Heart, so I could get to know the team, I had these mini pizza lunches. And I said, I don't want to talk about work. I want to talk about you and me personally. So there was about 10 of us. We go around the room. And I remember one of my employees said, I am so embarrassed to say that I work for Heart. I take off my shirt, I take off my badge, and it hurt my feelings. And I told him that, and I said, that is my job to fix it so that you're not embarrassed. You should be proud of where you work. Fast forward several years later, when I was going through this whole drama with my board, with the, at the board meetings, very public, he was one of the first guys there, and he told that story. He said, I was embarrassed to admit that, but now I am so proud. I wear my shirt when I go grocery shopping, and so, because I want people to know where I work. So I was really proud of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating just reflecting on that now, right? Because just the state of the country as we're in this election year, and even just the state of the church.
Yes.
And I think about how many of us maybe don't outright say it, but are feeling, I don't know if I'm proud to be Catholic. You know?
Yes.
But this is a great example of how to kind of fix that. Like, yes, we're not perfect.
Yes.
But why are we Catholic? Why are we serving? Do we have the heart for other people?
Yes.
And when we have enough people that are living saintly lives, that's when we change the world.
Yes. No, I really think that is part of why God put me here. Because even at ENV, I was a public figure, but not to the level of Heart. And so I have a platform now. People want to hear me speak. I get invited to speak at so many different functions. Every year I give about 100 speaking engagements. And I do constantly talk about my faith. And so that's what I feel like. I feel like that was one of the reasons he put me here. Yes, my engineering, I can help solve the problems, but it was, okay, now you're very public, Lori. People will now listen to what you have to say about me. So that's my belief. So I'm very proud to talk about it. But you're right, some people are kind of ashamed to say, I'm a Catholic or I'm a Christian. Like, I say it proudly. And I wear my earrings all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have any last pieces of advice for our young leaders?
I guess don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to admit that you're Catholic. Don't be afraid to take chances. Don't be afraid to be a leader, whether it's in your profession, whether it's in the Catholic faith. It's going to come back tenfold to you. If your heart is in the right place, if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's all going to work out. So don't be afraid. I mean, it was scary, right? To walk into HART that everyone couldn't stand it. Everyone wants to tear the thing down, kill the project, use that money elsewhere. And you're still going to have that. So you're still going to have the negativity, whether it's your profession, whether it's your Catholic faith. You have to be like a duck and just let it roll off of you. Don't take it so seriously, so personal, because it'll eat you up alive. So, and have a sense of humor, right? So when people attack you, it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. Have a sense of humor, but you also need to have a solid group that you feel supports you. Because when I was getting beat up externally, I always knew I could go internally to HART, and my team is so terrific in supporting me. When I was getting beat up by the board, they were right there testifying. I never asked anyone, because I didn't want it to sound like I'm forcing you or else you're going to get fired. I didn't ask anyone to come and testify. People, they came on their own. People from the industry just wrote letters on my behalf. So don't be afraid, and make your decisions. Continue to grow your faith, and don't take things personally. Just let it roll off of you, because you know who you are. You know you're a good person, and you're doing things for the right reasons.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. There's a bunch in this conversation that I know people are going to take to heart. I
hope so.
I want to invite you to close us out in a prayer in
Okay.
just a bit. But if you like today's episode and you want to hear more, especially from our mentors, please give us a like, comment, subscribe, interact with us. Make sure that we know that you like these episodes so we can keep doing more of them for you. So thank you again, Lori, for joining us on the Young
Thank you.
Catholic Leaders podcast. And why don't you go ahead and close us out?
So, a little caveat, I'm not very used to doing prayers vocally in front of people. I usually just do it myself in my head. So this is new for me. So have patience. So in the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, dear Father, Lord, thank you for this time, for this opportunity that you've given me at HART in my entire career, so that I do have this platform to share about you and what you've done in my life, and both my career and professionally and personally. And you're constantly guiding me. And I hope I'm giving back to you and to the Catholic faith, the Christian faith. And I hope I was beneficial to the viewers that will be viewing this. And just thank you for everything you have given me. And I hope I'm continuing to, or I hope I'm making you proud and will continue to work in your faith as I move forward. In the Father, Son,
Amen.
Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.